What if I told you the most important retirement research you could possibly do doesn't cost a subscription, doesn't come from a publication with a tourism board advertiser, and has never once appeared in a Forbes listicle? It's already out there, thousands of pages of it. Real retirees who actually moved, who packed their apartments, flew 12 hours, navigated the visa office, opened the bank account, found the doctor, made the friends, and then sat down at their laptops 6 months later and wrote exactly what nobody warned them about. Reddit threads at 2 in the morning from a 67-year-old in Lisbon who can't get a local bank account 18 months after landing. Facebook group posts from a retired nurse in Chiang Mai who loves the country and is furious that the healthcare everyone praised is half what it was described to be outside the major hospitals. Expat forum replies from a 62-year-old in Panama City telling the person asking, "Should I move here?" that the city has changed, the costs are up, and the expat community he was promised has scattered. These people are not selling anything. They have no affiliation with a tourism board. They have no reason to make their choice sound better than it is. In fact, they often have the opposite impulse. They want to warn the next person. We went and found them, common internations, reviews of visa agencies on Trustpilot and Google, and long-form accounts in private Facebook groups for American retirees in every country on the standard recommended list. We coded them against 7 criteria, and what we found is going to make you look at the official rankings very differently. The countries that score highest institutionally, they score the worst on the things real people actually care about: bank access, loneliness, bureaucracy friction, and the gap between what they were promised and what they found. The country that sits at 6 or 7 on almost every major ranking, it has the highest real-world expat satisfaction by a margin that isn't even close. We're counting down 8 destinations from worst real-world review scores to best. Stay until number 1, because it's the place that should be number 1 on every list, and the reason it isn't is revealing in itself. Here's the methodology, because you should be skeptical of anyone who says, "I read 1,000 reviews," without explaining what they did with them. Internations, Trustpilot, Facebook expat groups, personal blogs written by retired Americans, and YouTube comment sections on the highest viewed retirement destination videos. We filtered for accounts that met 3 criteria. The person had actually moved, not visited. They had been there for at least 6 months, and their account included at least one specific negative observation, which we used as a proxy for honesty rather than boosterism. From those accounts, we coded 7 recurring themes: banking access, healthcare reality versus expectation, bureaucratic friction after arrival, loneliness and community quality, cost of living reality versus what they expected, safety reality versus what they expected, and something we call "would you recommend it" sentiment. Not whether they liked the country, but whether they felt the version they were sold matched the version they found. The results don't just adjust the rankings, they reverse several of them entirely. Portugal is the number 1 recommendation of international living. It appears in the top 3 of almost every major retirement ranking. And when you read what real expats write about it 12 months in, a specific word appears with startling consistency: bureaucracy. Not in the abstract, in the specific, grinding, appointment-by-appointment sense. The SEF, Portugal's immigration service, was officially dissolved in 2023 and replaced by AMA. The transition created a processing backlog that real expats describe in terms that range from frustrated to genuinely desperate. Forum posts document waits of 18 to 24 months simply to get a residence appointment after arriving on a D7 visa. During that wait, without a stamped residence permit, opening a Portuguese bank account is effectively impossible at most institutions. Without a Portuguese bank account, paying rent via bank transfer is complicated, accessing the public health system is restricted, and setting up utilities in your name is a repeated obstacle. The reviews on this are not outliers. They are the dominant tone. A thread on r/Panama City expats, posted by someone who had moved from Portugal after 14 months, put it this way: the country itself was everything they hoped for. The system for becoming a legal resident was, in their words, a full-time job with no guaranteed finish line. The second theme that runs through Portugal reviews is cost shock. The Portugal that was recommended, affordable Lisbon, cheap Algarve, budget-friendly Porto, is the Portugal of 2019. Real 2025 and 2026 accounts describe Lisbon rents that have doubled since the peak recommendation period, grocery costs that rival Spain, and utility bills that shocked people who had budgeted for the country they read about rather than the country they arrived in. Portugal is beautiful. The culture is warm. The NHR tax advantage still exists in modified form, but the gap between Portugal's institutional ranking and its real-world satisfaction scores is the widest of any destination on this list. That gap has a name. It's called a backlog. Thailand reviews divide almost cleanly into two camps. People who visit for months at a time on tourist visas and love it, and people who try to become genuine long-term legal residents and encounter a system specifically not designed for their comfort. The reviews for the long-term resident visa, launched in 2022 as Thailand's answer to the wave of foreign retirees who'd been cobbling together back-to-back tourist visas for years, are instructive. The program exists. The benefits are real. But Trustpilot and Immigration Forum reviews of LTR agents handling the application process are dotted with accounts of requirements changing mid-application, documentation being accepted then rejected, and processing delays that stretched 3 to 5 months beyond initial estimates. The older, non-immigrant OA retirement visa structure fares slightly better in the reviews, but the 90-day check-in requirement, where you physically present yourself at an immigration office every 90 days to report your address, generates a specific, consistent frustration. Expat accounts describe entire calendars organized around not missing a check-in, canceled trips because the window conflicted with travel plans, and a low-grade but continuous anxiety that one missed appointment could trigger a fine or a warning on your immigration record. The healthcare reviews deserve special mention because they illustrate the gap between institutional ranking and ground-level reality. Thailand's healthcare is ranked excellent, and in Bangkok's private international hospitals, Bumrungrad, Samiti Dej, that ranking is earned. But expats who settle outside Bangkok, in Chiang Mai or coastal towns, repeatedly flag the gap between the top-tier facilities and what's actually accessible to them. Reviews from retirees in secondary cities describe driving 2 hours for a specialist, being told medications are unavailable locally, and paying international hospital prices for what turned out to be a very ordinary service. Thailand is not a failed retirement destination, but the visa system requires active, recurring management in a way no official ranking communicates, and the real expat accounts make that unusually clear. Italy's real-world expat reviews have a peculiar structure. The first 6 months are almost universally glowing. The food, the beauty, the pace of life, the sense of history, the neighbors who bring you wine. Then something shifts. Months 7 through 18 is where the bureaucratic reality sets in. The permesso di soggiorno, the residence permit you need after converting your visa, requires a specific sequence of appointments at the post office, then the police prefecture, then a fingerprinting session, then a pickup appointment, with wait times between each that can collectively span 6 months. During that sequence, access to the public health system is restricted. Driving legally on a U.S. license has a time cap. Banking is difficult. And the sequence can restart from near the beginning if any single document is flagged as insufficient, which expat accounts describe happening more often than anyone told them to expect. POM score the country high on quality of life and low on ease of bureaucracy, consistently. The gap between those two scores is the widest of any European destination in our dataset. The second theme in Italian reviews is loneliness, and it's worth naming directly because no ranking tracks it. Italy is a country of extraordinarily tight-knit local communities, which is beautiful and also means outsiders, including well-meaning American retirees who have done their homework, can spend months in a village where genuine social integration happens very slowly. Unlike expat-heavy cities in Southeast Asia or Latin America, Italy does not have established expat community infrastructure in most of the towns that appear on the, quote, retire in a Tuscan village fantasy list. Reviews from retirees in smaller towns describe a specific kind of beautiful isolation, surrounded by the most gorgeous scenery on earth, genuinely struggling to make a single local friend in the first year. Italy rewards patience, language investment, and a long time horizon. The people who wrote the most positive, long-form accounts had been there 3 years or more. The people who wrote the most frustrated accounts had been there 8 months. Know which timeline you're actually signing up for. Panama reviews have changed tone measurably over the last 3 years. The accounts from 2018 to 2022 are consistently positive, affordable, English-friendly, infrastructure surprisingly good for Central America, strong expat community, especially in Boquete and the Casco Viejo neighborhood of Panama City. The accounts from 2024 and 2025 carry a different texture. The word expensive appears in Panama City reviews at roughly triple the frequency it appeared 4 years ago. Real expat accounts document rent increases that have pushed the standard expat experience in desirable neighborhoods well above $2,000 a month when you account for housing, utilities, health insurance, and food, a figure that contradicts virtually every current publication that still cites Panama as a budget destination. Forum posts from retirees who moved to Panama City 2 or 3 years ago and are now leaving describe the experience as watching the thing they moved to become a different thing. The low-cost city they chose has, by their accounts, been discovered and repriced. Boquete, the highland expat town about 5 hours from Panama City, gets consistently better reviews for cost, community, and lifestyle, but its own issues surface repeatedly. Crime against expats in Boquete has increased, with multiple 2025 accounts on r/expats describing robberies of the hiking trail variety that older reviews barely mentioned. The town's infrastructure for older retirees with medical needs generates consistent concern. The nearest serious hospital is in David, and for anything complex, the journey to Panama City is unavoidable. The pensionado visa itself gets good marks in the reviews, the discount system works, the permanent residency is genuine, The process is navigable. The frustration is almost entirely about the country's cost trajectory, not the program. Panama, the visa program, still solid. Panama, the affordable retirement destination, requiring fresh math with 2026 numbers. The Costa Rica expat review set is the most internally conflicted of any destination in our data set. Satisfaction scores are high, recommendation rates are low. That combination is unusual and worth examining. When you read through the accounts closely, what emerges is a country that people genuinely love living in. The natural environment, the political stability, the relatively strong healthcare infrastructure, but feel was fundamentally misrepresented to them in terms of cost. Review after review describes the same arc. Attracted by, quote, affordable, arrived to find manageable if you had more budget than you planned for, and now living comfortably but spending $500 to $800 more per month than their research suggested they would. The pensionado visa in Costa Rica, requiring $1,000 a month in pension income, gets reviewed reasonably well, but the accompanying requirement to purchase Costa Rican private health insurance through the Caja system adds $150 to $250 a month in mandatory costs that show up in virtually no headline income requirement comparisons. Combined with rents that now start at $1,000 for a decent furnished one-bedroom in San Jose's Expat accessible neighborhoods, the real monthly floor for a single retiree is closer to $2,000 to $2,400. Numbers expat reviews confirm repeatedly and official rankings consistently understate. The expat community scores very high. Costa Rica's established American retiree community is real, organized, and welcoming in ways that newer destinations can't match. That is a genuine advantage that the reviews reflect clearly. But if you are making a decision based on cost, and you're working with $1,500 or even $1,800 a month, the gap between what the rankings imply and what the real accounts describe is wide enough to constitute a material misrepresentation. Malaysia's MM2H reviews divide more sharply than almost any other destination, and the dividing line is almost always the visa itself. People who successfully navigated the MM2H process consistently describe Malaysia, Penang specifically, as a revelation. Healthcare that works, English everywhere, food that becomes a source of daily joy within weeks. Safety that surprises people who arrived with vague concerns about Southeast Asia, and a cost of living that still, in 2026, delivers the budget that was promised. These reviews are enthusiastic in ways that feel unperformative. People aren't boosting a choice, they're describing genuine surprise that something worked exactly as advertised. The reviews of the process that got them there tell a different story. The 2021 MM2H overhaul, which dramatically raised income and deposit requirements, appears in review after review as either a near miss that almost derailed a move or an active deterrent that forced a pivot to the state-level Sarawak or Sabah programs. Trustpilot reviews of MM2H visa agencies describe communication gaps, requirement changes mid-application, and a Malaysian immigration bureaucracy that moves without rhythm or predictability. Multiple accounts describe using agents who were themselves surprised by requirement changes. The consistent advice that surfaces in the most useful accounts: use an established agent with at least 5 recent successful MM2H approvals, verify their track record in a forum before engaging them, budget 12 months for the full process, and do not make irrevocable housing commitments until the visa is physically in your passport. The life in Penang, by every account in our dataset that got past the process, is what the rankings say it is and then some. The path there is harder than any ranking communicates. Know which part of the sentence you're evaluating. Philippines reviews stand out in our dataset for one specific reason. The emotional tone is higher than anywhere else. Not just satisfied, genuinely moved. Retirees who have been there 2, 3, 5 years write about the Philippines with an affection that reads differently from the polished positivity you see in destination-sponsored content. The reasons are consistent across accounts. The language, English everywhere, not as a concession to tourists, but as a daily operating reality, removes an entire category of friction that expats in Europe and Latin America describe as constant background stress. Banking, while it has its own bureaucratic textures, is navigable in English. Medical appointments happen in English. Neighbor conversations happen in English. The cumulative effect on daily quality of life is documented in review after review as larger than expected. The cultural warmth reviews are specific and consistent in a way that stands out. Multiple accounts describe arriving as a stranger and being absorbed into a community. Neighbor invitations, community events, church groups, colleague introductions from other expats, within weeks rather than months. The loneliness scores for the Philippines are the lowest of any destination in our dataset by a significant margin. In a category, retirement abroad, where loneliness is frequently cited as the thing that sends people home, that is not a minor data point. The catches that surface in the reviews are real and worth naming. Typhoon anxiety is a recurring theme. Expats describe the annual typhoon season as a genuine psychological weight that no one fully communicates in advance, and the preparedness required is more demanding than have insurance. Traffic and pollution in Cebu City's commercial zones appear consistently as quality of life friction. And the SRRV bureaucracy, the Philippine Retirement Authority's pace, frustrates people who expected the warmth of the country to translate to the efficiency of its government offices. It doesn't. Budget time and retain a local agent. But the community quality, the English immersion, the cost reality matching the published numbers, and the warmth that shows up in account after account as genuinely different from other expat experiences, the Philippines earns its place at number 2 in real-world review scores by a substantial margin over the institutional rankings. And yet, one destination still sits above it. Here is what happens when you look at the actual accounts. Medellín Expat Reviews, from r/Medellín, from the Medellín Expats Facebook group with over 40,000 members, from Internation's Medellín chapter threads, from long-form personal blog posts from American retirees now in their 3rd and 4th years, share a specific quality that is almost absent from the reviews of the institutionally top-ranked destinations. They sound like people who found what they were looking for. Not people who are defending a decision, not people who are making peace with the trade-offs. People who are describing a life that is better in specific measurable ways than what they had before, and who are slightly baffled that more people haven't arrived at the same conclusion. The satisfaction scores across our coded criteria tell the story cleanly. Cost of living reality versus expectation, Medellín is the only destination in our dataset where real expat accounts consistently describe spending less than they budgeted, not the same, less. Furnished one-bedrooms in El Poblado and Laureles consistently appear in reviews at $500 to $750, and the accounts confirm those numbers rather than revising them upward. Restaurant meals described at $5 to $9. Grocery bills at $120 to $160. Monthly totals for a single retiree landing consistently in the $1,100 to $1,600 range across independent accounts, not the promotional estimates, the real retrospective numbers. Healthcare satisfaction reviews from Medellín are some of the highest of any destination. Multiple accounts specifically cite the private hospital experience, Clínica Las Américas, and similar institutions, as better in specific operational ways than what they experienced in the US. Shorter wait times, physician-level directness, English available at most private facilities, and costs that appear in reviews as the most frequently cited source of pleasant shock. One account described a cardiology consultation, ECG, and follow-up at a private clinic for $60 total. The community reviews are the other standout. Medellín has developed a large, organized, genuinely welcoming expat community over the last decade. Weekly meetups, established Facebook groups that actually respond, WhatsApp networks that connect new arrivals with people who've been there years. The loneliness scores are low. The "would you recommend it" scores are the highest of any destination in our dataset. And crucially, unlike several other destinations where high "would you recommend it" scores coexist with high harder than expected scores, Medellín's reviews consistently describe the gap between expectation and reality as positive. It was better than expected. The catches appear in the reviews, and they are consistent with what we've covered before. Spanish matters more here than in the Philippines. Reviews from retirees who arrived with no Spanish describe a steeper early adjustment, navigating a lease dispute, communicating in a government office, building friendships outside the expat bubble that becomes manageable but requires investment. The consistent advice, 3 months of dedicated Spanish study before arrival makes the difference between an expat enclave experience and genuine integration. Safety reviews are nuanced rather than alarming. Petty theft accounts are real, phone snatching, bag grabbing in specific areas, and the reviews treat it with the matter-of-fact seriousness of someone describing urban reality, not danger. Multiple accounts explicitly compare it to being street smart in Chicago or New York. The accounts that describe more serious incidents cluster around people who disregarded specific neighborhood advice after being told by the expat community. The reviews do not describe Medellín as unsafe. They describe it as a city that rewards situational awareness. And the Colombia Pensionado visa, the legal architecture underneath the life, gets reviewed with a warmth that no other visa program in our dataset matches. Fast, clear, stable requirements. An immigration attorney fee that appears in accounts at $800 to $1,200, and a timeline of 4 to 6 weeks for approval. The reviews describe it as the visa that actually did what the pamphlet said it would do, which, based on the rest of this video, you now understand is a rarer experience than it should be. Medellín consistently ranks 6th or 7th in institutional retirement rankings. In real expat satisfaction scores across our 7 weighted criteria, it is number 1, not narrowly, but by a gap that makes the institutional ranking look like a different measurement of a completely different thing, which is exactly what it is. Eight destinations, one data set of real people. Here's the fast version of what 1,000 accounts told us. Portugal, the most beautiful bureaucratic trap running, the country is real, the backlog is realer. Thailand, a visa system that requires a calendar and a lawyer to maintain. Healthcare that varies dramatically by how far from Bangkok you land. Italy rewards everyone who stays 3 years, punishes everyone who expected it to feel easy in the first 8 months. Panama, the community the rankings describe has partially moved on, and so has the price. Costa Rica, beloved by the people already there, misrepresented to the people still deciding. Malaysia, Penang delivers everything it promised. The process to get there requires patience and a good agent. The Philippines, the highest warmth scores, the lowest loneliness scores, community that catches you before you have time to feel isolated. And Medellín, the only destination in our data set where people consistently spent less than they budgeted, felt safer than they expected, and rate their experience higher than they were told to anticipate. Here's the thing about real reviews that institutional rankings can never replicate. The publications are measuring a country. The people in the forums are measuring a life. Those are not the same measurement. A country can have a low-income visa threshold and a 14-month appointment queue. A country can rank high on healthcare indexes and still have a retiree driving 2 hours for a specialist. A country can have the most generous discount program in the Western Hemisphere and be 40% more expensive than it was when that discount was designed. None of those things appear in the rank-ordered table. All of them appear in the comments section at midnight from someone who actually moved. Read the comments, find the Facebook groups, look for the accounts that include at least one specific complaint because those are the ones being honest, and then go visit for 3 weeks minimum. Rent a place, don't stay in a hotel, walk the grocery stores, sit in the plazas, talk to the people who've been there 2 years and ask them what the first 3 months were actually like. The world is wider than most people let themselves believe, and the people who are already living in it are far more willing to tell you the truth than anyone trying to sell you something. We've already broken down the specific, on-the-ground reality of Medellín for a retiree on a fixed income. The neighborhoods, the month-by-month budget, the healthcare walkthrough, and the security practices the expat community there actually uses. It's the video that fills in everything a ranking can't. It's right there,